There's a battle going on in the online business space. It's launch versus evergreen. It's not really a battle, but I hear the conversation all the time. Should I be launching my products? Should I be doing these big launches with webinars and challenges and ads and affiliates? Or should I have my products selling on autopilot in an evergreen email funnel? Maybe you've heard that language. Maybe you've done one or the other. Maybe you've done both. I get this question a lot, and I'm around people that have a preference one way or the other. And I've been doing online business for over 14 years now in 2 different niches, and I've been a part of all of this. And so I have something to say. It's a valuable conversation because I think the sustainability of your business and the amount of revenue you can make are at stake here in this conversation. So what I want to do in today's episode is pretty practical. I'm going to pull back the curtain on the pros and cons of both the launch model and the evergreen model. And then I'm going to give you my take on where I land, how I've landed, and how I came to that conclusion so that you will be better informed, because what I want you to do is win. I want you to make as much money as possible, but I want you to have a life-giving business as well. So with that said, let's jump into the battle royale, launch versus evergreen. Welcome back to the Graham Cochran Show, where each week I'm helping you unpack the habits, mindsets, and strategies to build a highly profitable and life-giving business. I'm your host, Graham Cochran. I named the show after myself. Fancy that. I'm glad you're spending some time with me today. I hope you're enjoying your day, and I hope you're ready to think deeply about a pivotal strategy when it comes to your business, because whatever you have to sell, whether it's a course or a community or a 12-week high-end coaching program or one-on-one coaching or a retreat or a book, whatever you want to sell in the online space, you've got a couple of options. You can sell it with a launch. You can sell it with an evergreen model. I'm going to explain both of those. And I need you to figure out which one's best for you. I want you to know why you do what you do and have a reason for doing what you do, not just because you heard somebody on the internet talk about launches or evergreen funnels and was swayed one way or the other. I'm gonna literally unpack the pros and cons of both, and then give you my take on where I land and what I'm doing currently, so you can hear what's working for me currently. Okay, but before we get into this, you got to understand kind of where I come from, which is there was a period of time when I didn't know what a launch was. Okay, raise your hand if you ever wonder, like, what do you mean by launch? Like, we know what the word launch means, but when people say launch, I didn't know what they meant. And the reason I didn't know what they meant was because I built my business in the dark. I built it in a silo in 2009 and 2010, 2011 was when I was starting to finally get traction towards the end of 2011. And this was a time in my life when I didn't even know this world existed. Knowledge commerce, info products, e-learning, online course business, whatever you want to call it, I didn't know it was a thing. I thought I was making something up that was brand new. I mean, there was people doing it, but I didn't know they were doing it. I didn't even know the Jeff Walkers of the world and the Amy Porterfields of the world and the Neil Patels of the world. I didn't know these people existed. I didn't know the Russell Brunsons. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't even know who they were. And so all I knew was I needed to find a way to make a living. Hey friend, we'll get back to the episode in just a moment, but I wanted to give you a gift for hanging out with me today. I want to give you my 30-day online income jumpstart guide. This is a 4-week checklist, bullet points to go from zero audience, zero customers, maybe even zero idea of what your business should be, to putting money in your pocket 30 days from now. It won't be $1 million in 30 days, but it will be money in your pocket. You will have figured out your idea. You will have tested your idea. You will have launched your idea and taken massive action towards building a business and a life that you love. If you already know your business idea, but you've been sitting around and you haven't taken action on it, then you need this guide, because it'll walk you through a 4-week plan to go from where you are to putting money in your pocket in 30 days. And if you've never figured out what your business idea is and you have no followers online and no audience, it's okay. This will help you start at zero. I promise you. It's a PDF. It's fast. It's easy to read. It's not an ebook. You don't have to spend a lot of time on this. It's more about taking action and doing the right things in the right order. And it's free as my gift to you. So just go to grahamcochrane.com/jumpstart to get your 30-day online income jumpstart guide. It's grahamcochrane.com/jumpstart. Now back to the episode. So when I stumbled into building my first course, which is a course called Pro Tools Bootcamp. We had to rename it to Rethink Pro Tools. We had a little bit of a copyright infringement there. It's a funny story there is the guy who had sort of the boot camp copyright in that same space that sent me sort of like a cease and desist letter. We actually became really good friends, and I spoke at one of his events. So go figure. You can get threatened to change the name of a product or a company and become friends with the person in the end if you have an open mind. So that product was my very first course. And all I did is I filmed it. It was teaching a piece of software. It was like a 3-hour, 4-hour tutorial on how to use this massive popular piece of software that we use in recording studios called Pro Tools. It's kind of like the Photoshop of the audio world. And so filmed it. I zipped it up in a zipped folder and I put it on my server and I sent out an email to my baby little list at the time with a PayPal link. There's like a little mini sales page with a PayPal button. And if they bought it, PayPal was supposed to send them, to forward them basically to this zip file link. There was no thank you page. There was no email follow, but just like sent them to this link that should, in theory, help them start downloading the zip file. I mean, this is how janky it was, y'all, in 2010. This was like April 2010 when my first course launched. But I didn't know it was a launch. I didn't know what a launch was. All I was doing was letting my email list know it was for sale. And I went about my business. I've told this story before, depending on where you've heard it or if you've been a part of some of my webinars or come to an event where I've been speaking. But I emailed out my list. I hopped on a flight to Seattle, Washington, because my grandfather's funeral was happening. My grandparents lived there at the time, and he had just passed. And so we were staying with my grandmother. And after the funeral, a day or two later, I wanted to check my email, and I had my laptop, and they didn't have internet in their apartment. They lived in this beautiful downtown sort of condo for elderly people. So like a retirement condo. And they never used the internet. So they're like, we don't have internet in our unit, but you can go down to the cafe and there's a library down there and there's internet down there. So I was like, okay, great. So I brought my laptop, went down there, opened up my laptop, checked email, and there was this email from PayPal saying you've made money. And I made $45, and it was my very first sale of a course. That was my first launch, and I didn't even know I was doing a launch. What I immediately did after making a couple of sales there, I probably made maybe $500 total on that first course, was I immediately put it in an email sequence so that when new people joined my email list, they heard about that course and started to sell that course. And so I ended up doing what's called Evergreen selling, and I'll get into the details of it here in a minute. And that was my main model for years and years and years until I discovered this thing called launching that other people were doing. And they're like, oh, how much did you make on your launch? How much did you make on your launch? I'm like, I don't know what a launch really is. When you say launch, is there a certain time period that you're just calculating how much money you've made? Like in the first month of, I didn't know what they meant. And all I knew was how much I was making each month from products selling in my Evergreen email funnel. And I was wondering what this was. I had to go figure out launching, and I studied Jeff Walker and all the other greats and figured out what a launch was. So zoomed out, here are the two models, and then let's go through the benefits of each and the cons of each, and then I'll share with you what I'm doing today. What I was doing for years before I realized it was an evergreen model, okay? People join your email list through your lead magnet. It's in your YouTube video, it's in your podcast episode, it's in your blog post. There's a little link, there's like a bonus, a downloadable. We've talked about this. They download your lead magnet. It could be a PDF. It could be a video they can watch, an on-demand video training. It could be, whatever. It could be a quiz. They take a quiz and they get their results. That is an opt-in. That is a lead magnet. And so now their email list, they're on your email list. The Evergreen model says automatically start sending them emails that are pre-written, that are designed to do a couple of things, which are over-deliver, because you always want to give first and lead with value. You've already done that, but then you over-deliver by sending just another little surprise, like, wow, here's another little bonus, or here's a cool concept. You're creating a little bit of credibility and authority, like, hey, you might have just consumed some of my stuff. You may not know who I am necessarily, and you're not bragging on yourself, but you're just subtly saying, here's kind of why you should listen to me. And that could be, where you've been featured. That could be people that call you friends, or you've been on your podcast, or that could be just, here's a small case study of how I've got results in transformation for one of my clients. And so any one of those things can create some credibility. And then you teach a little bit, right? You add more value through teaching, and so that they start to realize that your emails are valuable and worth opening. And they're like mini blog posts, or they're like mini videos. And it's like, this is great. I love opening Graham's emails. And those emails should naturally then transition to, hey, I have an entire course or an entire community or an entire mastermind or a whole book or whatever that goes really deep on this. If you've been liking this, you're going to love this. And it offers your product. It's very casual in the sense that it's not high pressure. It's very effortless and natural because it's following the flow of your free content and your lead magnet and then a couple of emails. And it starts to just weed out the people that aren't going to be interested in the course because they're not really liking the first couple of emails. But if they're liking it, they're going to like the course, and then they have the choice, and you're just making the offer. They can buy it or not. This is wonderful because you've pre-written it. You've set up your Kajabi or your ConvertKit or your MailChimp or whatever that handles your emails to automatically send those emails at a predetermined amount of time to new people, and it's automatically selling for you in the back. And that's what an evergreen email sequence or evergreen email funnel, if you've heard of a funnel, that's what that is. Okay? Now, the launch model is something different. The launch model is where you have a new product, or let's say like I have a community that I open and close a couple times a year. You are spending a week or two or longer building up hype that something is coming, this product is coming, the doors will be opening soon, and then email goes out. Today's the day. They call it open cart. You can go shopping now. The thing is here. Just like with the Apple iPhone, they tease the new iPhone's coming. You might see a commercial. You might see the date that it's going to go on sale. You might see them do a demo. They might do a press release or a press conference. There might be some videos, and then all this, but you can't buy it yet. But all of a sudden, today's the day. It's on sale. That people are excited. They go and buy, and there's a limited time to buy. So this could be like, a sale. Like things are 30% off, but for a limited time. Or in the case of a lot of information products or courses or memberships, we open the doors for 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is, and then the doors are closing. There is some sort of urgency, which we'll talk about in a second. They have to join now. And so you got a ton of activity and a ton of people joining. Okay? That's a launch. It happens and then it ends. It has a start time and an end time. And then you can do multiple launches, which we'll talk about in a second, but that's what a launch is. It is a fixed period of time in history where this thing is for sale or this deal is offered or whatever. And then it ends. So launch versus evergreen. The way I loosely redefine those words is launch equals explosive but inconsistent income. Evergreen is slow but reliable income. So you have explosive but inconsistent income, slow but reliable income, launch versus evergreen. And I think those are very accurate. I'm not saying one's better than the other. We'll get to that, in my opinion, in a minute. But that's by nature of what they are. That's what they are. Launches are very explosive, but then it's over. The faucet turns on, faucet turns off. Evergreen, faucet's always on, but it's dripping out, but it's always on. And so you can kind of tell what the money's going to be. So let's look at launch model first, then evergreen, and then I'll give you my verdict, and then you decide. Here are the benefits of the launch model, okay? Urgency and scarcity. You can use those words interchangeably, create explosive revenue. And that's what we just talked about. Like, this works. I'm taping this right now, and it's the last day of open cart for my community, the six-figure coaching community. So hopefully you joined if you saw this. Well, if you're seeing this now, it's too late or whatever. But it'll open up again one day. A couple times a year, I open up this community. This is my favorite community for entrepreneurs who have already launched their digital business. Maybe they've launched a course. Maybe they've launched a coaching package. They've made a little bit of money, but they're ready to scale to six figures, multi-six figures, some even up to 7. And they want coaching from me in a group coaching format. They want ongoing training, advanced training. They want a community of people to ask questions and get support and share their wins. It's amazing. But today's the day that it closes. So all week it's been open. I did a webinar. I taught some amazing stuff, helped people scale their business even if they don't join the community. But that kicked off the open carton for 7 days. It's been open. Today's the last day. And so you got a lot of people joining. You've had people joining throughout the week, but today, the last day of a launch is always fire. Like on average, I'll see half of my sales come in on the last day because this is it. The email goes out like it closes tonight. It closes tonight. And there's magic in that. We're procrastinators. People who sit on the fence, we wait to the last minute. It's human nature. Until you give me a reason where I have to decide now, I probably will be distracted by TikTok or my kid throwing up on the floor, or I got to call the bank and, refute that charge. Life, right? So give me a reason to join now. That's what scarcity does. And it creates explosive revenue, which is so, so good. You'll have this huge spike, this huge infusion of cash into your business, which feels good. And that's a subtle benefit that I didn't even mention here. It just feels good and you feel awesome. And a lot of people like to brag about their launches. I don't think there's any point in bragging about your launch because there's a lot of ways to inflate those numbers. You can run a lot of ads. You can have a lot of affiliates. I think my biggest launch I've done to date was around $350,000 in 5 days, which is, that's good for me. It's small for other people, but I had some affiliates I had to pay. I didn't do any ads for that. There was no real ad spend. But a lot of times people are saying, I did $1 million launch, but they spent $500,000 in ads and they have affiliates to pay. They might walk away with $100,000, $200,000, which is great, but it's not really $1 million launch, is it? It's just, it sounds nice and impressive, but it feels cool. And it really helps to have an infusion of cash. So that's probably the biggest benefit. Explosive revenue, lots more money in a short amount of time. But there's two more benefits that I think are so powerful for you when you launch. One is more customers in a short amount of time, which leads to, this is why this matters, it leads to more testimonials faster. So if I drip out a course, it's going to take a while for me to get a bunch of customers in there. But if I do a launch and I get a bunch of people to join that course and go through that course, I'm going to get a bunch of people to get results in a shorter amount of time than if I spread it out, which means I'll start to get feedback. I'll start to get testimonials that I can then use to sell it more to more people, because testimonials are the best way to sell it. Like me telling you my community is amazing is one thing. Hopefully you trust me, but it's more powerful than me talking about it is my own customers, my own students who've gone through it in their own words. Like, I joined Graham's community. I was making $3,000 a month and now I'm making $30,000 a month. Like, that's powerful when one of your students says that about your thing and sells it for you. So you get more testimonials faster. And then the other thing is, because of more customers, it means you're going to get more helpful feedback sooner. This is so helpful when you're launching a new product. The more people you can get to join right away and then close the doors, you can ask them, hey, what's missing? What could make this better? What's broken? Like, is there a link that's broken, right? And that helps you improve the product behind closed doors in a short amount of time before you open it up to be evergreen or launch it a second time. So you can fix the thing. And a lot of times when you're launching something new, you're also testing out new material, you're testing out new concepts, and you want to make sure that it crushes. And so maybe you could view that first launch as a beta group, and they help you refine it and you co-create with them and they make it better. Those are three huge benefits of the launch model. Here's some cons. One of the biggest cons about the launch model is that it'll burn you out. And if you have a team, it'll burn your team out. It's a lot of work. If you haven't done a launch, and I find this when I teach in my course, Automatic Income Academy, I'm teaching people how to start their online business. And in that course, you're figuring out your profitable business idea, or even if you read my book, How to Get Paid for It, I teach the similar stuff, right? You figure out your idea, you start create content, you develop a lead magnet, you're building an audience, and then you're figuring out what should be your first paid product. Let's say it's a course, which is usually what I recommend to start with. And then when I teach launching, when people get through that chapter in the book, or they go through those modules in the course, they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work, bro. I'm like, yeah. Like from the pre-launch content, like Jeff Walker is the godfather of launching. So go read his book, Launch. He has an incredible course called the Profit Launch Formula. Everyone that's launching learned it from him or someone who learned from him. Like, he kind of pioneered this thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is just hard to believe. He was selling like stock advice back then, like a newsletter. But pre-launch content is a huge part of it, like warming the audience up. This could be a 3-part video workshop, or sideways sales letter, as he calls it. This could be a live webinar. This could be a challenge. All of these are pre-launch content because usually it's free, and it's priming your audience, getting them wins, getting them to see how amazing you are, giving them a taste of your goodness. Like Nacho Libre says, a little taste of the glory. See what it tastes like, right? Giving them a little taste. And so that takes work. Like even like my webinar that I do for six-figure coaching community is fire. Like it's fire. It's worked. Like I've done it a few times now, so I've refined it and the bulk of it's there, but it's work to come up with the content, build the slides, get people to the webinar. Like, it takes like a week to like promote the webinar, get people there. And when they're there, you got to do the webinar. You got to get people results. I'm coaching them live. I'm doing interaction, blowing their minds. That's a lot of work for free. And then you got to have the sales page, and you got to have the sales emails, and you got to have all, and you're welcoming people. And when you get to the end of a launch, you're like usually exhausted. And I remember I was at the first Kajabi conference that they did in 2019, the Kajabi Impact Summit. And Brendan Burchard, he gave a big keynote, and he was talking about one of his launches. Maybe it was like his biggest launch. I don't remember what the story was, but he's talking about this launch. And when he's done, he was so exhausted and so proud of himself, but exhausted that and he's so sweaty because he'd been working for like hours and hours and hours at the end of the launch. And like, it's like midnight, and he goes and takes a shower, and he has a beer in his hand, and he's like in the shower, like exhaling and drinking a beer, like while the water runs over his face. And I laughed out loud when I saw that visual, but he was so freaking tired. And that's what happens when you launch. Even if you're not trying to make it complicated, launches just take work. And if you have a team, it'll burn your team out. Like, if you try to do launches all the time, it will zap you. And that's one of the cons, because it's a heavy lift for everybody. It's more customer service. It's more this. It's more that. It's more, if you're on social media, it's going to be more answering questions on social, blah, blah, blah. You know who else it burns out is your email list. Burns your audience out. If you launch, like I know some people that launch every 2 weeks, that can burn your list out, because then they start to think, well, all Graham does is just launch. If I had a massive launch every 2 weeks, it'd pretty much be like every day I'm in the middle of a launch. It's either pre-launch 1 week and then launch another week, and then I go to pre-launch for something else and launch. That'd be a lot. You would eventually feel like, hey, okay, I didn't realize it was just going to be sold to every single day. And that's some people's models. They sell every single day. And some people are fine with it. Some people are not. But that's one of the cons, is it can burn your list out, where they're less receptive to buying because you're promoting too much, not giving enough. And you want to find that balance. But here's, to me, the biggest con of launches, and the thing I hate about launches the most. You ready for it? I personally think, and I'm not the only one, because I've had a lot of conversations. I'll tell you about one in a minute. I personally think that it is scary to have your income so dependent on 2 to 4 massive launches a year. If you don't know this, and maybe you don't, a lot of the big players in this space that are doing at least 10 million a year, 80% of their revenue comes in 2, sometimes 4, but usually 2 big launches a year. Sometimes 1. These launches are planned out far in advance. They involve a huge ad budget, and they involve a huge network of affiliates. All of their friends know it's coming. All of their friends are going to affiliate promote it. Their friends have moved their promotional calendar around so that that's going to be their promotion as well that month, so that all of a sudden, everywhere you go on the internet, everyone that you seem to follow is promoting this one person's course or this one person's membership. And it's a coordinated attack, because it has to be. You need the whole freaking planet to know about it, so that you can make $2 to $5 million per launch twice a year to get to that $8 to $10 to $12 million a year. And while that can work, if it is a killer offer, people love that, you've gotten great results, you've got a great network, you've got the ads dialed in, you've got it all dialed in. Even if it works, that's a lot of pressure. And 2 quick stories about that pressure. One, in my mastermind, the Epic Mastermind that I just closed the doors to a couple of months ago, but about a year and a half ago, one of my members in that mastermind, her name's Rebecca, she was talking about one of her 2 big launches. Now, she does a lot of different things, but the bulk of her revenue at the time was coming in these 2 big launches. And I remember her saying on her hot seat one day that she just felt nervous. She felt nervous and felt pressure. She's like, we need this launch to do X. Our budget's basically assuming that it does X. It's built around that. And it's done that before, but there's that question mark of, does that mean it's going to do it again? And she was visually, like just a little overwhelmed thinking about it. It was pressure, like when you could see pressure in someone's eyes. She's super sharp. She's crushing it. So proud of all that she's done. Super intuitive, but you could sense the pressure she felt. I'm in a mastermind right now, and I was talking to 2 individuals in January. We were out in Scottsdale, Arizona for one of the in-person gatherings, and I overheard them talking about launches. And I jumped in, what's going on? How can I support you guys? What are you excited about? And they were talking about upcoming launches and how nervous they were. They're like, dude, my last launch did, 4 million or 3 million. And I'm just nervous that it's not going to do that this year. And then one of those individuals, I was on a call with him, and he was telling me he had this new product he was so excited about, and it needed to do a certain amount of money, and their launch bombed. Like they didn't even make back their ad spend. And he's crushed it before. He has a history of success because he's a successful person. And it just bombed. And it was a lot of money down the drain. And it just like they're having to rethink their entire year based off of how that launch went. And I was just like, oh, I hate that for you. Like it makes my stomach unsettled, right? So it just makes me sad. And like, it's just not what I love, right? That's not why I got into this business. It's a lot of pressure. It's a fun game when it works well. It's a lot of pressure when it doesn't. And there's a lot of things that are outside of your control when it comes to a launch. The economy, market forces, trends shifting. There's a lot of things that are outside of your control. A lot that's in your control, but it's scary to have your income so dependent on 2 to 4 big launches a year. So those are the cons, in my opinion, of the launch model. Let's talk about Evergreen, and then I'll give you my thoughts. The benefits of the Evergreen model are the two big S's that I love. They're scalable and sustainable. So the Evergreen model is super scalable because it doesn't require any work. So I'm a huge fan of that, right? Like, yeah, the biggest like when you have multiple offers, you can continue to build out your email funnel. So you might have a simple 5-day, 7-day initial email sequence, email funnel that welcomes people, over-delivers, teaches, adds value, and then transitions to a pitch for one of your core products, like I discussed earlier. That's a great place to start. But you can build that funnel into something that I call the mega funnel. And the mega funnel is multiple offers. Again, it's all for new people. So they join your list, and they're not getting your regular weekly emails. They're getting a predetermined journey that's going to have regular free content mixed in with offers. And those offers are going to be logical, and there might be some simple automation based off if they don't buy that, then show them this offer. If they buy that, then show them this offer. And it's going to just be a little sort of choose your own adventure journey that's all automated. And it could have as many offers as you want. The longest my funnel has been is a 45-day funnel. So there was a point where you would join my list for the Recording Revolution business, and you would go through a 45-day funnel that it would offer you 5 products. So in a month and a half, you've gone through 5 offers, and you could have bought them all, bought none of them, or anything in between. And the beauty of that is that I didn't lift a finger. I wrote those funnels once, put them all together into one mega funnel, and it just sold. And as my audience grew, and as more people joined my email list, as my YouTube channel grew, as I grew in the industry and more people are jumping in, that's more people going through that same funnel. That's more people being sold, right? It's automated. That's the whole point. So it's very scalable. And because it's scalable and because it doesn't take any work, it's sustainable. The selling is happening for me, so I can focus on other things like creating new content, creating new offers, connecting and networking, having fun, right? The other benefit of the Evergreen model is consistent and predictable revenue. This was something when I was learning about launching that surprised me. I was surprised to learn that a lot of my colleagues in this space would say their income is up and down. They're like, business, it's irregular income. And I was so confused by that because my income was practically the same every single month. I knew, and still to this day, know exactly what I'm going to make every month, almost to the dollar, within a few hundred, few thousand. As the numbers grow, the gap grows, but like pretty predictable. And why do you think that is? Well, if you have a healthy evergreen funnel and you know how it converts in terms of percentages, then for every 100 people that join my list and go through the funnel, I'm going to make X number of sales. So for every 1,000 people that join, I make X number of sales. And so based off of how many people are joining my list, I know how much money I'm going to make each month. And so I only had to look at one real leading indicator, which is my email opt-ins, and that would predict my lagging indicator, which is revenue. And so for someone in the business space, usually you're concerned about feast or famine. You make some, you don't make some. But if you have content marketing that's always sending you leads, and you have steady leads joining, and you have an evergreen email sequence, then you shouldn't have feast or famine. You should have pretty predictable revenue, which I liked as having young kids and a wife and mortgage and bills. Like, I liked knowing what I was going to make. And I think that's one of the benefits of the evergreen model. And then the other one is the flip to a con of launch is that there's no burnout. There's no burnout to you. There's no burnout to the list, because the promotion's really only happening to new people. Those are the people that are getting promoted to, in theory, the most is the new people. And they've never been promoted to before. And they're happy to be promoted. Like, the data shows that there's something called lead decay, that after 30 days, your leads are less valuable than the first 30 days. So there's some merit, statistically speaking, to selling sooner than selling later. Now, if you've done a good job, if you really handle your email list and you provide value and you nurture that list, right? Like a garden, like you nurture it, or like your children, you don't let them die, you nurture them, right? Then it'll be a healthy list. And if you've done your job, they're going to buy stuff forever and ever and ever, but not everybody. You're going to see that lead, its value decay over time after the 30-day mark. And so the beauty is, like, those new people are excited to hear offers from you because they just found you. Like, the people that are most excited to buy from you are the people that just found you, right? Think about anyone you found online. You're like, oh my gosh, she's so helpful. Does she have anything to, like, can I go deeper with her? Like, that's when you're most likely to buy, is right then, right? So there's no burnout to the list. Okay, let's talk about cons to the evergreen model, because there are cons. The number one con is that it is slow. I am not going to lie to you. Evergreen model is slow. That is why I think it took me a while to make good money. Like, I worked practically full-time on my first business, The Recording Revolution, for 2 years before I made $60,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month. I've got students who get to $5,000 a month in less than 6 months, 4 times faster than me, okay? Took me 2 years to reach 5K a month, because that's just the nature of Evergreen. Until you have a massive amount of leads, Evergreen is not going to be very profitable for you. So as you're beginning, like I was, a new blog, a new YouTube channel, it just takes time. That's going to be your reality. It's going to be a slow trickle. And I have students who follow this model, like, 'cause I teach this model a lot. I teach both models, but I teach this model a lot, and they complain, like, it's taking a while. And I'm like, I told you. So I'm telling you now, so you don't get angry at me. It is slow. So if you want to make money slowly, this is great for you. If you want to make money fast, this ain't going to be great for you. And then one of the biggest cons of the Evergreen model is there's little to no urgency. There's no real way to create urgency. Now, there are a couple. There are some tools like Deadline Funnel, and there's a new one that just slipped my mind that someone was talking about. Something with a countdown. But basically, where they use cookies or they use some kind of tracking so they can see when somebody joined your list, and they can start the clock on an offer for that person based off of when they joined. So if you want to give them 5 days to join your course, you can use real scarcity language in your emails. Like, you've got 5 days and there's a countdown timer, and it's real, because after 5 days for them, 5 days after joining your list, for them, based off their IP address or a cookie or something, when they click on that link, it's going to say expired. And so it's a powerful way to create real urgency in an evergreen way. And I've used Deadline Funnel before, and it can work. It's a little clunky. Everyone that I've ever told to sign up for it has been like, I hate this format. It's super clunky to get started. But once it's set up, it works. It's a little harder for it to be as effective as it once was, because a lot of people, the way browsers are and the way people are surfing on mobile, like, it doesn't always track as well, because we're in this new world where the software is, you have to like opt in for like cookies or opt in for tracking sometimes. So it's not as effective as it once was. It's also a pain in the butt. There are ways to do urgency that aren't just the same as like open cart, close cart, but you can use simple automations, let's say even inside of Kajabi, where based off of tagging, when they get the first email, they get tagged. This is very simple to do in Kajabi, and if you slow this down and replay, you'll see the model. Somebody joins your email. It's the moment they join, or the moment they join, they get tagged like inside the funnel, currently in the blank course funnel, and they have that tag. And so in the email sequence, you can offer your course and say, look, if you join the next 5 days, I'm going to give you a bonus. And basically, if they click on the link and buy while they have that tag, you can have an automation set up for Kajabi to send them a separate onboarding sequence that includes the bonus. So it's a copy of the welcome email sequence that says, hey, thanks for joining, here's your bonus, automated. And then when they get to the last email in the funnel, you can have an automation remove that tag so they no longer have that tag past day 5 or whatever the day is. So if they dig up those old emails later and they go back and click on the link and buy, they can still buy the course, but now they're going to get the original welcome sequence, which does not include the bonus. So it's a way around that to create a sense of urgency by offering a limited time bonus if they buy during a 5-day window or predetermined time. So there's some ways around it. That's why I say little to no urgency, but it's not the same as a launch. It ain't going to be as explosive or as exciting or as sexy. So that's the con of Evergreen. So what do I do? What do I recommend? And then I'll leave it to you. I, as you can guess, do a hybrid. I've tried to become a man that loves the word and. I have a black or white mind. I'm either or, this or that. It's usually how my brain operates. Not everybody, but my brain operates that way. And I've tried to embrace the word and, this and that. I want to have my cake and eat it too, right? So I launch some, but evergreen most. 4 words to describe my model. Launch some, evergreen most. When you join my list, let's say right now, I don't know when you're going to listen or watch this, but you're going to go through an evergreen sequence that's going to offer you probably it'll offer you three to 4 products, depending on the journey that you choose without realizing, depending on what your actions are. And so that's creating evergreen income for me every single day. And I love that. It's dependable, it's predictable, and it makes sense for the customer too, because like I said, when they join, they don't want to wait around for me. If like my course was only available when I launched it, like no one could launch their business. They joined, they're going to want to launch their business now. They're probably interested now. So I offer my course now, as well as some other things. But then I have launches. And what I recommend to my students and what I teach inside of my 6-figure coaching community, is one way I try to like help people scale is like, let's look at your promotional calendar. I have a lot of people who are afraid to launch. I'm like, guys, you got to promote. Like, do not be afraid to sell to your email list. So that's part of the point, is to sell. It's all in how you do it. And hopefully, if you've been on my list for a while, or if you are on my list, then hopefully you've seen that you can do this in a classy, beautiful, generous, others-focused, ethical way, where it's like free content, free content, free content, and then like, hey, here's an awesome offer. And that's all an offer is, by the way, is I'm offering you something. I'm not selling you something. My hand is open, and you can choose to take it out of my hand or not. That's all an offer is. It's so neutral and so lovely and so others-focused, and puts you, the customer, in the driver's seat. Do you want this or do you not? It's up to you. I can't make you do something you don't want to do. Like when you're at a restaurant and a waiter comes up to you and says, Graham, Mr. Cochran, can I offer you another cocktail? Can I offer you another donut? Can I offer you another slice of pizza? The answer would be yes, probably to all 3 of those, right? Yes, please. I would. It's just so innocuous. Could I offer you? Could I? It's just it's an ask, and you can say yes or no. So what I see is a lot of my students are afraid to launch, afraid to promote, and so I teach them inside of my community. You want to promote, like have a big scarcity-driven launch at least 4 times a year. Okay, so if you only have 1 or 2 products, this will probably be at 4 times a year. You're going to have some kind of quarterly launch. And that could be opening and closing a course, or opening and closing a community, or opening and closing slots for your coaching group or mastermind. This could be a holiday sale like Black Friday. It could be one of your quarterly launches. That's a launch. It's a open, close deal. This week only, this weekend only, this day only, whatever you want to do. That's a launch. It's a scarcity-driven promotion. I say have at least 4 of those a year, at least once a quarter. And then what you want to work your way up to, once you have a more filled out product suite, is 1 per month. I don't think you need to do any more than 1 per month. I don't do more than 1 per month. It's very rare. It depends if like the months overlap, or if I'm doing like a segmented launch, testing out something to a small segment. But once a month, I'm going to offer something. And it might be open and closing my community. It might be launching a new beta product. It might be just reminding people about my course. It might be doing a cool webinar that offers a part of my course that I'm testing out to see if people like it as a mini course. But offer something once a month once you get there, but you need enough products to do that. It can be affiliate products as well. If you've seen me promote, if you're on my email list, sometimes I promote Kajabi to you because it's not my product, but I could still do a promotion to tell you about Kajabi, why you should sign up, and you can use my link. And that is still a promotion because if you do join Kajabi, I make a commission on the back end of that. So it doesn't have to be your product even. You can promote somebody else's product. So yeah, you want to get into launching at least once a quarter, but I evergreen most. So get your evergreen funnel in place, at least for your core product offering, and then look at your promotional calendar, look ahead at the next 6 to 12 months and say, what am I going to promote every 3 months or every 2 months or every month? And you can re-promote things, you can look for new products, but that combination is going to give you the best of both worlds, which is steady, predictable income, a scalable, sustainable business, but then those big infusions of cash at launch time and big infusions of leads and customers, which is really fun. You know, that's how, like, if you want a lot of extra cash in your business and you're like, I can go buy a new car now, or I can go, you know, pay off that student loan debt or whatever. Like, it's nice to have those big infusions of cash for a moment, but also it's nice to have an event to promote. It's nice to have, because if people are only seeing your evergreen funnel and then they're out of it and they've been on your list for a couple of years and you're not selling anything, they forget that you have anything to buy or anything to sell to them. And so it's nice to have an event to celebrate and get excited about. And even if they don't buy, it reminds them, oh, she's got like premium stuff, paid stuff. He's got paid stuff. I forgot about that. I should check that out. It's fun to have that to promote. So hybrid, launch some evergreen most. That's where I land. So my question for you is, what has been your experience? Do you launch? Do you evergreen? Do you do a hybrid? What have you found that works? And what seems to fit your business goals, your team goals and team size, and your revenue goals? I really do think you can win with either. Anyone who says you can't make money in evergreen, I've made millions just doing evergreen before I even knew what a launch was. Anyone who says you shouldn't just only launch, that's not true. If you like it, launch it. I just think it's stressful and a little unpredictable. But I think this is the best way to scale, is some combination of the two, because you're really diversifying your efforts and you're getting the best of both worlds. So yeah, those are my thoughts there on launch versus evergreen. Friend, this was fun. I like to nerd out on the tactical side every once in a while. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was helpful to you and gave you something to think about. If you're on YouTube, engage a little bit. Like, what was your biggest insight? Leave a comment. Let me know. Crystallize that thought before you just move away and watch, cats playing with cucumbers. Like, do some critical thinking. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you like to consume this show, I need you to stop for a second and say, what was my biggest insight from this episode? Let that crystallize in your brain so then you can go take some action on it and find the next best step for you. Thanks for some of your time today. It is obviously the most valuable thing you have to offer, and I'm grateful to have had your ear for a few minutes. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you on another episode real soon.